Those meetings, order. This is our special meeting council for Tuesday, June 17th. We are being recorded, so be aware meetings are recorded, being placed on a publicly available website. I'll also do a territorial acknowledgement, acknowledge that we are on the unceded First Nations land up in Chiniki territory. So, got one item on the agenda, get approval, motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Thank you, Councilors Lewis and Shanice, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried, no minutes, there's just business arising, so that's just, we've had 2025-2026, we adopted in 2023. I'm going to turn this over to,
Thank you. So I don't have a lot prepared for today, not like our council orientation where, I had a slide deck and everything. But we do have in your package our 2023-2026 strategic plan. What we're looking for today is to find out is the strategic priorities we have, are we going to continue moving forward with them? Are there new ones that we want to consider? Are there old ones on here that we no longer want to consider and replace them with other priorities? So we'll do this in the same, I think, in the same vein that we did the last one, where, have a roundtable of what everybody wants to do, and then, get some key points down of strategic priorities, and then basically at the end vote, like we did before, on ones that we want to see move forward. But before we start, since we adopted this strategic plan in 2023, I've made a couple of observations just sitting as a staff member in the council meetings. And although this document focuses on, I think, tangible priorities. So, Lot 501, Pandora Slough culvert replacement, official community plan. What I wanted to start off with is, what is council vision for Zeballos? And I know we have the official community plan, but again, that seems to be sort of reflective of generalities. So I'm going to point out one of the key things that I've noticed sitting as the corporate officer and CAO across from council is we've recently adopted the official community plan zoning bylaw, but the feedback I'm getting, and I don't know if this is universal, so this is why I want to have this discussion, is that there might not be support of some of the rules that we put in place. And then so the question for me is, okay, why did we put those rules in place? Was it was that the vision of council to have a little more structures for the community, or was it a case of I feel like this is what we should do, but don't really want to do it? As a council, this is at this point, this is your vision to enact, your priorities to enact. And so, the question is for Zeballos, what is the vision? Are we looking at are we looking at growth? Do we want to expand what Zeballos is? Attract more residents, build more houses, build more businesses. Are we looking at just maintaining, keeping Zeballos the way it is? Just making sure that nothing deteriorates further than it is, but keeping it, generally rule-free, a little more quote-unquote Wild West, or do we want to revert to the way things were prior to all of these sort of rules coming in? and maybe what we'll do to get the conversation started, and I'm going to put Mayor Colbert on the spot, but she is the chair and the CEO of the Village of Zeballos. So maybe your thoughts on that.
Well, that's a lot. Okay. The the growth in Zeballos really depends on, in my opinion, this is just my how I feel about it. The growth in Zeballos really depends on diversification of the economy, right? So with not having, we're not a logging and fishing town anymore. That's not what we're doing. That's not where we are. I think that I have been I still am a supporter of the high-speed internet, because I think that in itself will diversify some of this, get maybe some cottage business and things like that going on. But I also, with the climate and the population and the demographic in Zeballos, as more homes sell, I'm not seeing any difference in the demographics. We're still getting a lot of people that are moving here, and they're moving here to have a house, and they're not living here, and they don't really want to live here. That's not something that they're seeking. So I don't see that happening. I see a lot of the continuation of what has happened and using Zeballos as a vacation home type place. So, and we can't control that. We can't control who buys here and who doesn't, right? So, and what can we provide for economic diversification? We don't have an ECDEV kind of project. We don't have any of those kind of, we don't have an ECDEV plan. We don't, and so really our growth is going to be growth, essentially, is how I see it. We're going to provide services to them. That's who we are. So that's kind of like state of affairs. In the future, I would love for, there to be some kind of movement of the mine site. I'd love to be not necessarily for extraction, but for people and for economy and for a way to ensure people have a way to make money while they live here. There's an attraction to come here that they can actually pursue some kind of a living. Oh geez, there was so much in here. I don't know where to go. As for I mean, I know there's been a lot of changes in the last little while with the way our strategic community plan has gone, and a lot of the buy-in from the residents. I think that was so good, the way we had so much input from them on our community plan. I do that some of the legislation that we've had to put in, I just don't think we're big enough for all of that to matter. Speaking plainly, we are the smallest municipality in BC, so the more the more of those rules that we do put in, I think the less of that small town feel that it has. I know that anywhere you go, you have to get a development permit from a village, from a town, from a whatever, but also it's been a very big change in the village to have any, because it has been, I don't like to use that Wild West kind of terminology, but it has been, we've made rules when it really warrants it, not when we've absolutely had to. The provinces come in and been very heavy-handed in the last little while and said, you must do these things. So I don't think that reverting is because we've had to do these things. We were told by all of our consultants, by all of by our staff, that these are things that we have to have in place. There's just no, So I think if we can minimize those things going forward, now we've got a good base. let's, and give people a chance to catch up as well. Right? I think that the um, it's a lot to process for people who have never had to do that before. So lots of questions, lots of confusion, right? Concern, those kinds of things. I don't know if I answered all of your questions.
It's more to spark a discussion, to see where everybody is feeling about the future of the events. Like I said, we have the official community plan, but what's our vision for the community?
And
In sort of more tangible terms than that big document.
And I think looking at our board, we have come a really long way. So I'm really proud of this council for getting the parking is well underway. The trails have had massive improvements. The water and sewer infrastructure will, at least the sewer will be coming kind of to some kind of a point this year. The culvert, those were all things that are really, just ticked off, that we've allowed as making those decisions for our staff to accomplish. So that's fantastic. I can see that, taking some of those pieces from my vision anyways, is taking some of those pieces from the long list and moving those across to our higher priorities because they're already there. They are priorities of ours. And I think in the coming while that there will be some important conversations that will happen, especially with Ihatasat, the neighbors. So I think that some of those things, once we get a project under our belts and see the value and the residuals of that in the community, I think will go a long way for um, opportunities to partner, to maybe strike some more of those smaller tangibles off of those lists, move them over, and get them at least started. Because I don't think with our location, with our size, that there's much that we actually can do in a growth, from a growth perspective without we have. I don't know if that sparks anything with anyone or.
Maybe for simplicity, we'll go alphabetical from council now, which
Perfect.
would switch to Councillor Copeland's. Your thoughts, your visions for Zeballos in the future, whether growth or sustaining.
For Mayor Fulburn. I would like to hear more of what Mayor was saying. That was pretty general, but specific. I like general and specific. I like to support India. How does that? I don't have enough information. Like I don't know what their vision is. Why we're not working together a little bit more so that their vision and our vision can come together. It's just not happening. And so I don't know how to support. We can support the habitat other than the project that we've started. I don't know what their long-term goals are and what's needed from us as support. And do we want that as our do we want that as our village's main concern? I know it's a major concern. Should it be the main concern? I don't know. The people that I bump into my day-to-day stuff compliment how developed all the time on how beautiful it is. They want to move here. They love the stress-free environment. They love that there's many road rages or people rushing around. They just love it so much and they're in touch with nature. They love to come here because it is stress-free. They want to leave the city. I hear that from just about every person that comes through here as a tourist. I think we're missing the boat on whether we can even do this on promoting the mines in the area. I mean, it's all part of our history. Zeballos' history is right. A significant amount of the history is around the mines and the logging. And people enjoy that kind of stuff. They love the history here. It just doesn't hit you in the face when they come to town, I don't think. Some of this, we're talking about new housing. for example, small homes, more affordable homes, people are coming here looking for homes, and yes, they'll pay the existing, real estate values only because their climate's starting to climb. I think like tiny homes, for example, would not only bring in new people, but the people that we'd like to see happily retired into the contentness, into the history of the place. And with the lessening of the rules, not lessening of them, but slow down on the rules a little bit to make it that stress-free place. You don't have to worry about permits here and stuff like that. You know, live here, you want to go to the post office, you want to park, it should be relaxed. In my opinion, that's what people are saying to me, that they want the stress-free place and they'd love to live here. Housing I think housing will bring a significant change. If there, for example, the trailer park or tiny homes or whatever project the council takes on. That's about my image of it. Progressing in it faster than we're growing, like for example, progressing with legislation and rules and procedures faster than Zeballos is growing, I think diminishes the comfort zone of the residents and the people who want to come. I think that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, so just make it quick. Dock expansion was the first thing I said, and I think this is gonna be a good one for our community. You know, we've talked a bit about our situation down at the municipal dock. And you know, what I'm noticing is that there's those lodges that are starting to strive and do better, and they need places for their boats and for their fish cleaning and I think there's a really good opportunity for the community to have an expanded dock so that people have something that's owned by the village we can govern. We can use that to help, you know, people who live here and the businesses that do this. Tourism, that ties right in. Nightly rentals. You know, I do think that part of our houses are being bought up by people who want to use them for cottage slash nightly rentals. So I think that we can make sure we provide some support for that. Ecotourism's big. You know, that can drive a lot of our economy within tourism. RV and mobile home park, I think we can continue with that and segregate the lots, make sure that we have room for people to expand, even if that's the only way we can at this point. But for one beautification and repair, I would love to see tied into waterfront beautification and a park or boardwalk. You know, we have a right of way around our waterfront, and that was put there for a reason. And I'd like to see that used for a boardwalk so that people can walk through and enjoy, you know, enjoy what we have, the waterfront we do have. That was pretty much my list of the positive things.
So much information, so much information. I can't think of anything else that comes up that you guys haven't already covered. The tourism, you know, definitely. The expansion of the village with what Hattis is proposing down the road is an extremely large expansion. So it does open up the possibility for other businesses on this side. I mean, they're talking apartments, they're talking, you know, so that will also be infrastructure for us as far as our water system goes as well. And with the well monitoring system, it'll also help because we have a much better idea of what we have, or we have to divert or find other water infrastructure. So, yeah, like I said, it's a bit of a large part of it depends on what Hattis is plans are, and they're, if they're going with what they had originally planned, that's huge. You're talking homes, apartments. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I do think that we really need an update from them about that, but I mean, we can go off the last information that we have, which means that they're gonna bring the rest of their membership home. I think they're at 500 right now.
Yeah.
80. Currently 80 to 100, there's 100 here, so we're talking about like an essential tripling of our population. Of course, that plan is a plan. I think there's a lot of remediation work that has to go on that lot. I've talked to the CAO a bit about their growth plan and things like that, and so yeah, it feels kind of counterproductive to be working without current information on a plan that could really affect our services that we provide to not only Habitat, but to our people, to the paying taxpayers at home here as well. So thank you for that. To the CAO, I know that did not really. That may not have answered all of your questions as specifically as you like, but in a generality, are you kind of getting the feel or?
Yeah, definitely. There's a couple of things that have popped out of that. I definitely, from at least hearing from 2.5 of you, I really think that we need to start relooking at our zoning bylaw. And possibly our official community plan, because I'm hearing that that those rules that have been implemented, that there might not be some satisfaction majority with those rules. So yes, we did under the housing legislation, we did have to have a zoning, but not all of the rules that are in there absolutely have to be in there. So there's an opportunity for council to relook at it. It would be the same process as when we originally adopted it. To look at council-driven revisions, there would have to be a public hearing, first, second, third reading of an amended bylaw. But most definitely that's within your power. There are certain things about that that any of you are not satisfied with. So that we could relook at. Definitely within our purview. Moving forward, the 4 of you sitting around there and Councillor Deck, you are in charge of governance. So, often the consultants, myself, staff will bring over recommendations that we feel are a benefit to the community, but we are not governors. You are the governance. So we're bringing them forward thinking this may be a good idea. We think it's a good idea. But it's your opportunity to go, no, and this is why, we want a little bit more of that stress-free community. So even though you've included A, B, and C in the zoning, we think it's too restrictive, and want people to have a little more fluidity in how they manage their properties. Now, of course, I always, and this is the administrator side of me coming out, the person that lives this day to day, there's always the pebble in the pond. Is if we don't have some certain regulations in line, now what about that person that wants to do the far out thing, and now we have no ability to stop them from doing that, whatever that far out thing might be. So, when we remove the rules, it's under the premise that everybody is being sort of common good to the community. But what about 1 or 2 people that decide that they don't really their personal gain is working than the community, and that and so that's why I often sit back on having regulations and rules, is not to actively enforce them, but to have them there when we need them. And just to sort of touch on that, we are not an active enforcement community. Most communities, I think, smaller than Kent River are not active enforcement. They're complaint driven. So, for the most part, people can continue to do what they want to do unless somebody complains. How are we feeling from 2023? We all brought in our opportunities, and I do believe staff was part of this as well. How are we feeling about those still being opportunities, considering some of the stuff that's happened in the last 2 years? Tourism.
Yeah.
Tourism still an opportunity?
Definitely,
Definitely.
one of the biggest.
Partnerships.
Is that like with that?
And yeah, New Chatham, Hattis,
Regional district,
regional
Mount
district,
Waddington.
yeah. Grants, I would definitely say yes, just from the administrative side.
Well, also, there are opportunities, but understanding like the capacity as well for this. I think we've been pretty cautious lately in trying to, if we're gonna get some grants, we're gonna get some large ones, and we're gonna concentrate on those ones that are directly affecting our strategic priorities and our goals. Because there are a lot of things that come through that I think that we won't be taking advantage of just for the next little while, but all moving forward, bringing back to those, multi-million-dollar budgets that included some of those nicer to have grants, right? That are all moving us in the same direction, but, yeah. NPR is large.
Yeah, and we'll come to challenges. I've got some notes of my own as well. So grants, yeah.
Yeah.
Mining, we spoke about mining. Now, is it an opportunity? I understand that there might be some land use challenges going on with the mining. So is that still an opportunity?
Doesn't seem like at this point.
Councilor Lewis.
It would be interesting for communication with them, if we could get any communication with them as to what's happening, how it may impact us.
Yeah, I still worry about the tailings pond. It's just sitting up there. It's just sitting there, people. Like, that could be a huge environmental, yeah. Yeah, that's a challenge for me. And I think with the rules that have come in through the governance and the way that they're processing mining claims and things like that, I think that is not as much of an opportunity as Councilor Denise said. I think there's a different, they're looking at it differently now. I think that the opportunity, though, as Councillor Copeland was saying, on expanding on that as our kind of branding, as our, doing some museum or maybe in an art kind of place, or expanding on that tourism opportunity from that lens. I also think there's a really missed opportunity from having any Hattisat kind of artifacts, or even a small piece of history from an Indigenous perspective in that museum as well. But that's just my.
Sorry, just making a note here. Internet, I think there's hopefully good news on the front. I just saw a bunch of trucks leaving as I was coming in.
New box.
Yeah. They've got a new project manager, Christina Owen, who was sort of in the background years ago. I just saw that she just got promoted to the project manager. She's recently given me an update. I think I forwarded that to council. If not, I'll make sure that I do. It's, hoping for a 2020 into 2025 connection. So finally some good news on that front. So I think I probably just answered my own question. It's still an opportunity. Now, fish farms, back in 2023, when we were looking at this, this was definitely an opportunity, given the federal government's announcements of closures.
I think there's still opportunity locally. Knowing the relationship that Habitat has with them and the business that they do down at the fish plant, because that is a business that is located in our municipality. So I think there's still, but limited, absolutely.
Are we asking a question? Are we
Go ahead.
having a conversation here, or was,
Go ahead.
what are we doing here exactly? Like, this is like a formal
We're
meeting,
going-
or
We're just going,
just to clear up?
we're just going through the opportunities and saying. if
Yeah, I
there's no
understand that, but
current,
is this like a formal meeting, or are we having a conversation like?
If you'd like to interject at all, please do.
Yeah, okay, cool. So fish farms are disgusting. They need to go. They need the environment. They make me sick. I can't believe they exist here so close to us. So I wouldn't say that's an opportunity at all. I'm very happy at what's happening and they're falling apart. Internet is obvious. It's gonna help everybody here. Mining, I think it's also pretty disgusting, although, you know, it's good for, it's good for revenue for. So yeah, that's where I'm at with those.
I'm glad you changed the tone of the meeting. Thank you. There can be more progress if you speak like that.
Absolutely. At any time, please interject. Yeah.
And I totally agree with the fish farm concept that you talked about. Totally like to get on.
And I think that that is actually a universal feeling around this table from everybody that I've talked to. But are there opportunities to, you know, for strategic wise, for keeping them in there? We could take them out, absolutely. I wouldn't mind that at all. But I think that we have to realize that the business that Habitat does out of Mid-Island is mainly focused on that at this point still, and so.
How does that affect us? Here.
I mean, it's in the water, so it all affects us, right? But as for like opportunities for jobs, I know that they have posted, you know, jobs in the community before for down there, although they mean to keep it to membership. But then there's the runoffs of that. So when they're doing work down there, then they're getting people to stay. Sometimes they're staying here in the village proper, if they're full, like, you know, so they're still working on them. That's what's happening. That's the reality, is they are still here. Yeah.
What I see administratively in this community, and feel free if I'm seeing things wrong to correct me. But with many of the ocean-based, both commercial and industrial uses, we're sort of the abuse stop. There's not much of a benefit to us. You know, for the fish farms, we're merely the road that gains them access to where they have to go. With the lodges, we're merely a place that they can park their trailers and launch to go and make money somewhere that's not even remotely close to us. The value that they're bringing to the community is minimal. So the detriment is large, you know, with waste disposal, and abuse of some of our services. And that's sort of what I'm seeing administratively. To be viewed.
Which point were you on when you said it?
Well, sort of fish farms, and somebody mentioned something about you know, the lodges.
The remote lodges?
Yeah. So the next one up is location. It says location, location, location. And we also have, and I drew a little arrow across in the challenges, is remote location. So is that a help or a hindrance? Location. And probably depends who you are.
It's a combination, right? Yeah, I mean, look at the beauty of what we have to offer. You know, that can help us in many ways. You know, regarding tourism for sure. It also keeps us off the beaten track. I mean, we don't really have any homeless situation here or anything like that because I think it's really hard to survive here in that capacity, right? Also, it's a difficult place to get into because of the 30-kilometer, 35-kilometer road you have to take in down the logging road to be here. So it's pretty unique in that aspect, and I think it makes it more attractive.
And also considering our road access, right? So that makes, it sometimes hinders development as well, right? Because then you've got to you gotta mow and demo. Everything you do, you gotta mobilize things and get them here. You gotta have all the stuff for what you're gonna do, because you can't run to the, so I think that kind of, but it is an opportunity. There is nowhere that I would rather be. People just come here and kind of like, they just take their coat off. Like, so yeah, it's both, definitely.
Alternative lifestyle destination, and what I've heard at the table already this morning is that's still an opportunity. Now, we started off this morning a discussion about whether we wanted to grow, maintain, revert some other direction. So we have limited growth as one of our opportunities. Is that an opportunity? I mean, we were, during the mine heydays, you'll know this because you're the museum, 2,000 plus people.
2,000.
Yeah.
I think on this one, from my kind of perspective, though, that limited growth is things like housing opportunities, doing some movement on some tiny homes, maybe doing a BC housing kind of apartment build type. There needs to be some kind of there's nothing to rent here. There's and the things that are available for rent are kind of being there's a certain demographic. People want like crew guys in their places, or people want, like, oh, we're saving this for visitors that come. We're saving this for a family member that might, all those kinds of things. So I think there needs to be something done about that. So in my perspective, the opportunity for that limited growth is that something that the village could possibly maybe partner with somebody on, or provide, opportunities for some kind of development that would bring a different class of home in here. You're either buying a house for a large amount of money, or you are renting from, there's got to be some midline affordable housing here that you could just rent something, right? Especially if you wanted to stay and there wasn't availability in the market for anything to buy, because that happens too. Sometimes that market dries up and there isn't much on the market. So then if you want to move here, or say you get a job as a teacher or a job, and you do find something that you can do here, or that the remote working internet, changes that, then where can you be? So that's where my vision of the limited growth is. Please interject with, that's different for anyone.
Yeah, that means to me is limited growth for us is the postage stamp piece of land that we exist on more than anything. I mean, if we do want more housing or development, it's going to be difficult to find places to do that, right? And now with the expansion of Adasad, that takes a huge chunk away. We could have done that, and that kind of leaves us going up the road, I think, and past the sign, and towards the cemetery kind of thing. Limited growth.
But as an opportunity. Because it's one of our opportunities.
Right. So we want to look at like an opportunity. Where's the opportunity? Mark?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's where the opportunity is, out the road. As far as that postage stamp piece of land we're living on. And the other opportunity is we don't have industry. Don't have anywhere for anybody to work. So that scares me a lot. You know, we talk about expanding to 4 times our population or something. What's everybody gonna do? You know, and that's, I think, what's gonna keep people from moving here most. Because, you know, like, that's why there's a lot of retired people here. Because they don't need that. So they can afford a house here, they can stay here and afford their bills. Yeah, so I think the opportunity will be in finding a way we can expand to have more housing. And finding a way we can expand to have more industry, more jobs.
I think the question for me that comes up, that goes back to the very first question I asked at the very head of this morning. Is that council's strategic vision is attracting more people to live here? Is that the vision of, you know, to expand our population? I know our OCP says, you know, 4 people over the next 20 years or whatever it is. But you know, is it a case of build it and they will come? You know, we're already looking at the mobile home part for expansion. And I've heard inklings that we would like to see a revamp of the RV part too, to allow some longer term accommodations there. You know, is there an expectation that we're going to get some more full-time residents in Zeballos, or a priority for staff to start working towards attracting more residents into full-time residents into Zeballos?
I think that's always been the goal, is having full-time residents here, not 40% of our houses are empty. Like, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know if that's different for others. There is value in it as a vacation place, absolutely, but not when it's gone too far the other way, I think. And that's what is missing exactly, is industry. We used to be, you know, there used to be logging and fishing and those kind of resource-based industries. And now the biggest employers are the village office, the school, the medical clinic, the EHADIS office, right? So like, you know, maybe some of the lodges in the summer. Yeah.
Pretty much everybody here works for the government in some capacity.
Yep.
If you have the job.
What's happening into the water, like, you know, this sole proprietor right now down running the economy out of there, like, a real obsession with it, for example. Can we not tap into expanding waterfront concepts?
That is absolutely within our purview.
That was kind of like what I was talking about the marina, about like the municipal marina.
Yeah.
We could add more, we could, well, essentially create our own marina. And I think that would attract people.
Well, there would be employment opportunities as well for people to rent equipment and tours and
Sure.
kitchens and.
You know, it's a ground up kind of thing, right? We used to not even have a hotel, right? And now there's an accommodation, and now there's somewhere to rely on. Now there's somewhere to eat. You know, I always compare it to, I used to work in Pula as a fisherman, right? And it was easy there because the people come and get on your boat and fish, and then they have a hotel, and there's a fish processor. Well, there's like 40 hotels, fish processors, restaurants, and they can just come and fish, right? Here, if you try to do that, until lately, you had to make sure everything was taken care of, right? So it all has to build from the ground up together to make it work. Which it's developed, it's happened since I've been here in 7 years. But I think our strategic plan, we should be supporting that moving forward, right? the things that are already here, and I'm not preaching about that quite a few times, like, let's take care of what we have, right? Let's maintain and take care of what we have, and I think we can reflect that on the businesses we already have and the people that are already here. So, and there's just very few things, in my opinion, that we can actually do. So we have to kind of concentrate on a couple. You're talking about expanding and providing opportunity to build, right? Like, that's a big undertaking. That's huge. Because we have to service all these properties that we don't even know where they're gonna be yet. So I think the easiest way to that is through the mobile home park and the RV park. Because at least somebody can say, okay, here, I bought a single wide, I have somewhere to put it, that has service already. So you can have an instant gratification of somewhere to live for somebody. Just happened to somebody I know, actually. You know, it probably feels a lot better, right? And got it?
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. So that's a, you know, I hate the word, but like low hanging fruit or whatever. I hate that expression, but it's kind of like where we're at. So could we build some tiers on the dock? We make sure there's a place to put some mobile homes, maybe fixed up and running properly, and you know, and can we build a couple docks to make sure there's more room? Some, you know, we talked about the fish cleaning station down there and seating with a nice gazebo and this kind of stuff, right? Like, those things are achievable. So I'd like to see us concentrate on more things like that than, you know, the potential for new housing in an undeveloped area that we don't know about, which we don't know if people are getting, want to come here and buy them, or that's kind of my philosophy. Thank you.
Looking at it from a senior's perspective, some type of housing for, you're talking about BC housing, you know, for seniors complex, somebody like me who doesn't want the yard maintenance and all that sort of stuff, but would be quite happy to rent a small unit. You know, and I'm certain that there's other seniors that would also be interested. I mean, it doesn't have to be massive unit, it can be similar to a tiny home, you know, as long as you've got enough space, right? The ones in Courtney I've seen are, you know, 400 and 500 square feet. A one bedroom, keep it simple. Yeah, I mean, I would hesitate about renting something like that. I don't want the upkeep and maintenance and the yard work and all the rest of it. I would rather have a little tiny garden outside. That's it.
Last one on there is recreation. Still an opportunity.
It's unlimited wherever you go out here, right? I do think that, you know, holding, kind of heats the fire, like doing some brushing and things like that, because, you know, I would have looked at it, it's brutal trying to get down to anywhere, right? But, yeah, and all along on your way in here, all surrounding you is nothing but recreation opportunities, right? So.
Challenges. I'm going to address the ones that I am aware of administratively before I pass my counsel. Challenges, professional help. I actually don't see that as a challenge administratively anymore. You know, we've really gone leaps and bounds, you know, getting Maquinna to support so many of these projects in a very short order. You know, once we were able to establish some of these priorities, we were able to get the professional help that we needed and push us forward. You know, and even outside of those external consultants, having Claudia, you know, really push our finances forward to help educate staff, mostly Atlanta, because she likes numbers. So I personally don't see that as much of a challenge anymore. The connected world of local government, you're not very long before you can find somebody that's willing to provide professional help. And on the same vein, staff capacity. I keep hearing from council when, it comes to grants to different opportunities is sort of a trepidation about capacity. But for the size of this community, for the projects that we're currently looking at, I don't think we could grow any. I don't think we need any more staff. There's not enough, unless we take on some much bigger challenges. We're at capacity for staff, so I don't think we have a staff capacity issue. I think we can start looking at some of these smaller grants to grow opportunities. Especially with the staff that we have, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, we've got a unicorn of staff in this community right now. We've got all of these dedicated, go-getting professionals that are moving this community forward. I know we haven't always had the opportunity that we have right now, and I think we need to harness the one that we have, because there's not a single person here that I don't stand behind. Professionalism, their work ethic, and the quality of work that they do. Absentee owners, yeah, I still think that's a challenge administratively. So we're just recently getting some more unsightly premises complaints, and they're not from people that are here. The complaints are, but not the properties. Challenge a lack of direction. Well, the 2023 strategic priorities was a great focused direction for us as staff. I mean, I've been in other communities where we've had strategic priorities and weren't able to hammer off some of the ones that we were able to here. And again, that's also a tribute to the staff here. Finances. Despite the fact that we're doing all of these projects and getting all of this stuff done, just revisioning how we're handling our finances, we're in a good spot for a community this size. And finally, challenges like I already spoke about with the grant funding. Again, I think that we can start broadening our opportunities, and that's all from my administrative perspective. Again, these challenges. This is council strategic priorities plan. So I think having said all that, maybe move that back to council. Before we do so though, because I spoke on behalf of staff, we do have staff here. Did I misstep on any of?
100% agree with you on that.
Okay, so back to staff, and I do think there's definitely some of these that we can, or back to council, but I think there's definitely some of these that can cross off, and I think there's also one that we've highlighted that was kind of added earlier. So having like that no major industry here is a definite challenge to, living here, or even the land to provide for something to move in to do that, right? So I think that that's something that maybe could be added. That's just feedback from what I've heard here today. I mean, staff capacity, there's still the realization that we have 3-4 people in this, you know what I mean? That I think that always kind of has to stay there, although the capacity that you guys have in your limited roles is definitely amazing. But, I'm talking capacity for, new projects and not getting outside help in and not having to rely on, so that's where that was. I'd still like to leave it on there. I think that not as a reflection of what this staff can do, but a reflection of the number of bodies for our population. I think that needs to reflect still somewhere in here that we do have a limited amount of bodies and that we have a limited amount of population. Professional help I could see coming off. finances, I still think with 129 taxpayers that, yeah, we do have an issue with finances. Compared to any other municipality who has to do the exact same work as we do with a much larger pool to work from. Lack of communication, in my opinion, I think that we've done so much outreach in the last little while. I think that with the feedback and the kind of things that we're doing, I think that, and I don't know where that was from, where that was from us as council, whether that was from the province. You know what, it needs to be a little bit more specific, I think, if we're gonna leave that in there. Lack of direction, I think that was probably early on, very much so, because we didn't have a current OCP, we didn't have strategic priorities, we were not going through this process. I think that has gotten a lot better, because now we have plans in place. We have these opportunities to sit together and do this. Absentee owners still a challenge, yes. Lack of housing still a challenge, yes. Remote, yeah, back and forth, but I do think we do need to, and I also think that grant funding, that last one that we do have on there before we add, if we were to add industry, the challenge with that is strategic grant, and that will always be this because of the lack of people, the lack of bodies, the capacity of what we actually have the time to work on in any given year, and that will fluctuate, right? But I think that being really strategic with our grant funding opportunities that we are taking on could help more. I know for a while there was conversations, especially with emergency services, about like, okay, whoa, hold on, we've got 8 grants out in a, like that's just let's gain that, let's step back from that. So yeah, that was my take on the list. Are we still doing roundtable? And yeah, so Councillor Copeland.
Thank you. Absentee owners is a big one with me, because that goes hand in hand with tourism and pride in the community, and therefore cohesiveness in the community. I know there's the problem is the absentee owners don't maintain their property as much as we'd like to see. There's been some complaints, obviously, about it. I don't know what we can do about it, but it sure needs to look. The lack of communication, I can see that with the partnerships, that directly related to the partnerships. That's why I see it's still in there. We don't really communicate well with some of our partners, or some of the village's partners, sorry. Other than that, I agree with everything else you said.
I would say, the list is mostly wiped out. Absentee owners discussed. Lack of housing, I don't know if I'd say lack. I mean, there's not an abundance, but I don't see people thought on doors to start building or buying here, you know. Remote location, that's not gonna change. That's gonna be a static challenge as long as we're here, unless they pave the road. That's the only thing I can see changing that. But yeah, most of these challenges I think have been overcome since this list was written. Is this 2023? Is that, yeah. I'd say most of them have been overcome by various factors.
Councillor Janice. Over to vote, I'm curious, do with the high-speed internet, again, affecting tourism, is it going into the RV? Is there a way that somebody comes into town, they still have access to the RV? I see nods.
Okay, anyway, but
Yeah, now whether or not it's free or how we handle that is a completely
That's what
That- yeah.
it's about.
Yes, this was a council meeting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and on that, I think with the way the technology is running, there, yeah, there's some interesting things on the horizon. People are doing hub type allocations for internet, and so at a certain place, it's like wireless, it's like cell phone, essentially. So there's a lot of things going on within that right now. So yeah, it's probably definitely a different meeting to discuss when that infrastructure comes, how we want to provide or not provide, and whether it's a monetized or a free kind of what that looks like with the services that especially I think City West is offering in their.
Well, I expect it would be monetized. I mean, people would have to pay for it.
It's a conversation to have at council. Do we essentially want to be entirely covered by cell service without having cell service, right? I mean, it could be so. Yeah, there's definitely some discussions to go on there.
No, that's something that quick. We talked about a pretty good idea yesterday. If we could do a mesh network like Mayor's talking about. But when you pay for your parking, you get a password to use it for the duration of your parking. Or if you rented in the RV park, you could have access to the network during your stay at the RV park. This kind of thing, campground too, something like that. Just as an idea.
Written down Wi-Fi infrastructure. Or internet infrastructure.
Cool.
How's everybody feeling? Because we're about to get into the fun stuff. What?
What was that? This is exciting. I'm gonna make a coffee.
Break, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go grab some sugar. And,
She's jonesing.
yeah, can we just take a quick one, like a 5-6 minute one?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I'd like to have them make a coffee.
So I think where I would like to go from here is just go over what our 2023 priorities were, the top 5, and where we're at with them. And then, like I said, I didn't have a great plan going in today. I will publicly announce that. So then I think probably our next step from that is identifying if any of these are going to stay in our top 5 or drop. And then start going through what some of our new priorities should be. And then some sort of voting system from council on what they should be. Maybe what I'll do is go get my sticky notes. That seemed to work last time.
And what I will say in this is when I did read this report, I was very encouraged to see all of the things that have been, checked off on this. I think that, with the team we've got here, with the professional help that we've been able to have and continue to have through, engineering and through connections with, the other staff members and the CAO, I think it was very heartening to go, okay, so like one of our priorities is completely out there. It's already been done. So are we going to limit our priorities for the night? Are we going to add more? And I think you've really captured that really well in this, that through just conversations at the council table, sort of kind of just skip ahead a bit. Those emerging priorities, I think you're just right on target there. I absolutely do. So. Emerging is the wastewater treatment plant, a wildfire protection plan, the mobile home redevelopment, the landfill closure plan, the parks master plan, the 501, and the east side sewer. I think that's exactly where we're kind of going, right? So to see all the things that have been checked off already and the progress made, and then just keeping, adding a few at the end. So thank you for that.
So starting with parking, council, how are you feeling about parking being on the priority list, considering the work that we have done. You know, we primarily focused on the waterfront parking. Are there any other areas of the community that we need to focus on? Do we still want to look at expanding our parking? Is this still an item that needs to be focused on as a priority, or moving forward just maintained and tweaked as needed?
Do you want to go do the same and go round table and go, you want to go reverse alphabetical for this part?
Zero plans.
Yeah, okay, let's just keep going as we were then. In my opinion, I think we're always going to have parking issues in Zeballos. I don't think there is enough. I think that we've tried to put it in places that were underutilized before, so I think that's great. But I think it's always going to be a kind of an issue with the street side parking. And if there is any growth, and if there is growth in tourism, and if there is a waterfront plan or something like that, we're always going to have a need for that. As for it being a strategic priority, I'm not sure that that's where it goes, especially, but I think leaving it on there for now till we see how well our new park, because that is a pretty new concept, the new parking that we've got. I think we're gonna have to keep it on as a priority just to tweak it. That was my, there's been a lot of work done, absolutely, and it's all positive, but we're seeing what the ramifications are of that this year, and maybe might need to tweak it. So didn't want to necessarily take it off. And especially with, like I said, the street side issues that happen, especially in the summertime. I think we're always going to have issues with parking in our roadways. Councilor Copeland.
I don't really have much to say on the subject, so I think you're right, absolutely, that it's gonna be a problem no matter what we do. We have some bylaws in place to help cope with it. I don't see it being an issue.
Yeah, I think, take it off the list. I think we're close to where we need to be. I think, again, I'll reiterate, like I always do, maintain what we've done. You know, maintain the integrity of our, development and the hard work we put into to make this come together and to make it better, right? And I think that's where we're at as far as, and then we've got the internet factor. So if we can get the internet, get some kind of a pay station, we can expand on that. And that's gonna make our revenue stream a lot easier. And like that internet thing too, I was talking about, something like that to implement. I think with some technology, we can improve on it. But until then, I think we're pretty much at our goal in that. And I'm proud to say that. That was a big development for us, so.
I'm thinking it should stay on. Only reason is what will the summer be like versus last summer? So now this is all done. Are we still going to have to look for possibility of where else we can use parking? Or, do we have to start shuffling people over towards the ballpark or whatever? Yeah, I figured this year we'll tell we're not just starting in the tourist season right now. So it would be interesting to see at the end of the year how all of this.
So
Am I hearing a lower priority, because we've got things in place, maybe taking it off our main list and kind of putting it on the long list?
I think you're going sort of where I am, because, I'm hearing that they want to see how the summer turns out. But are there any actionable items that staff need to be focusing on right now? I don't foresee any. I think I already know for a fact that there are going to be some requested amendments that staff is going to make to the council. We've already that people have figured out the loopholes, unintended loopholes, and we'll be asking council to address those after the season. outside of that, you're the man on the street.
I think like the other saying, it would be interesting to see how the summer actually unfolds now that we have lines and everything marked out. I think the overflow is greatly increased and spaces increasing there, but I also think more tourists can go in there because right now there's a little bit of a storage block. No, but I think there's lots of improvements and it'll be interesting to see how the summer unfolds.
And maybe that will come with some, roadway. I just don't. I know there are places, there are so many pinch points. So maybe it's a roads issue and not a parking. I don't know what that is. So that's just, I don't know. There's a lot of pinch points, and yeah, I think there could still be improvements, but I don't know about until we actually take this assessment. So maybe pop it on the end of the long list just to see. I don't know. And I also think that, having it as a priority, then we open to the need for that extra person to monitor that, to be coming up with better, tighter maps, to come up with managing, or monitoring, but those kinds of things. I think those will always kind of be a little until we get a good idea what it's going to go like.
And maybe there's some more things on our side that we're not quite finished, like putting the signs up and stuff like that, which will also help in those aspects too.
I think what Councillor Janice pointed out will be a key aspect to improving the parking, and that's to get the self-serve parking access. Yeah, right now, especially for people that are coming out of the big cities, are used to that convenience. It's unfortunately in this day and age, having to walk 50 feet from your car to the front of our office is a challenge.
Right. Well, put it in perspective. That is a quarter of all the available asphalt in our community. Right. We're walking a quarter of the way across town. Sorry, jokes.
Trails and parks planning. I don't feel like we made very much progress on this outside of some trail maintenance.
I disagree, and I think that trail maintenance is really key. I really do. I think that he's getting that under our belt and getting some real work, like some visual, stuff that you can actually look at and go, oh, whoa, okay, this is like really, I think that the visual of that, so it might seem like that's, but I think for community involvement, for, the look and the feel, the access, I think all those are, yeah, absolutely. I do think it's still a priority, especially with the committee kind of work that's going forward. Otherwise we wouldn't have done that, right? We would have just kind of let it go on. But I think with that committee and maybe a little more of a focused look at that, then there will be things coming out of that we'll want to do. But I don't count yourself as you didn't do much, because the things that you did do, just trying to get control over the degradation is major. Yep, so those.
To do with the trails, the boardwalks and that sort of stuff. And I'm just throwing it out there because I have no idea. Instead of using wood like we're doing, can we use the artificial type materials that they use for decks and that sort of stuff? Because there would be less degradation or rot down the road, even if it was started as a small portion of it and gradually increased over time to minimize the replacement and the labor.
Thinking like that composite decking.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Especially for the ones that are farther out, because it's so much harder to get to them and to replace them. So anything that is opposite would last for many more years than standard wood. Just a thought.
I agree. Yeah, I think, with the trails and stuff, you're right, we have done a lot of removal and little work with volunteer days and stuff. I still think there's lots of work to be done in there. You guys have a healthy budget there to get that work done. I am working on it in the background. The crew has been kind of focused on other projects and getting caught up with maintenance and the day-to-day stuff that goes on around here too, but yeah, I don't think it's lack of funds or anything there. It's just time and getting it done.
Try and maybe throw something out that we might want to look at as a focus, as an actionable item. I know it's come up in conversation. So just to maybe spark an interest from council is staff focusing on access to the little Zeballos trail. Because right now we have sort of a haphazard bridge, which thankfully Hudson was able to secure. But do we look at, starting the permitting process to get a more permanent access to that trail? And that's going to be much more involved than what we've done and likely cost some funds.
You picture like something like one of these bridges that goes over the slough kind of thing?
Yeah,
Yeah,
or we can make it fun and do one of those cable cars.
fun is fun.
Hey, don't take my retirement project money. I'm setting up a zip line in the back of my house. Ole. Yeah, it's definitely something to swing past that kind of parks committee of the whole. I think that there is value to it. I would like for the in-town, the estuary, right? The river is in such good shape. It's just, I don't know how that happened, but it's like the terrain that it's on and like, but that trail is just like, there's not a whole lot to do, right? And so I'd like for this estuary one to be kind of similar to that. It's super accessible, really easy to get on. Somebody could ride a bike on it or something. The Little Zeballos Trail, also remember that we own property over there, so we can take that bridge out. We don't have to have that access. That access can go in behind the Telus building. It doesn't have to be where it is, right? So there are options there for sure. That would like make not even have to have a bridge, right? So yeah, there's all sorts of options there. We bought the property. Yeah, put a bridge across the launch. Funny. We bought that when we started talking about the trail to Zeballos in cooperation with Ihadasat, building it to Texas, building the trail to Texas. So that little piece of property back there, Western Forest product owned, that we actually bought to have, well, they gave it to us. So, and there's more lots back there like that. So they're, maybe we don't even need one. Or alternatively, putting a new one in. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll put in 2 cents. I think there's been a lot of talk about parks, but not a lot of action. And I think there's some really good ideas out there. But we haven't really put in the funnel and got to any conclusions together.
Yeah.
We tried this, what do you call it? The Parks Board thing, and we tried discussions about it, but nothing stuck to the wall. And, and I don't think it's as complicated as making it because there's not a lot here, but I'd still like to see it, segregated, understood, which properties are ours and again, maintained, upkept, made to look like we're proud of it and some, we're lacking a bit of structure, maybe some child play equipment, definitely access to trails like the CEO was stating, that's a huge one. I mean, so how can you have a trail if you don't have access to it? So that's basic. But I'd love to see things move a little bit more forward with that situation. And I'm having trouble getting my head around how we can all come to terms with that and make it happen.
Do we actually have an active trail committee?
We tried, so the Trails Committee now consists of, we're gonna do, a subject line in our committee goals. In the second, meeting of each month, our committee meetings, with a, resident who is going to act as kind of an advisor kind of thing, so, because we didn't get any, public interest in it. We only had the one person kind of come forward and say, hey, I'd like to be on this committee. And the way a committee works is the makeup of it is 2 people from council and 3 from community usually. So there's only the one person. We've taken that in our own. That's why it says under council's purview right now, because it's back to us. And so it's just making, and the intent with that, I think our last meeting said we would bring in, our engineer that has done parks plans for other people and not necessarily have a large parks plan, but get things a little more streamlined and dialed into, actionable items and priorities. Nice.
Yeah, because I agree, there's been a whole lot of progress in the trails. And the estuary, things like, instead of cycling through the estuary, which takes away from the nature, more like birds sighting stands, observing nature as opposed to riding bikes to it. I think that's a huge priority because it's a beautiful piece of land there. It needs to be explored. And the access there's just a lot to be done. I think Parks and Plans is still a significant thing to have on the plan here, because even when you go to a resolution, yeah, you just scrape the heck out of the truck. It's so overgrown to get in there. It needs some attention. It's such a beautiful spot up there as well. So yeah, I think that an active trails and parks planning group, committee, whatever, I think it's essential to keep it on the books. Absolutely.
Sure. And then that also includes, like you said, any parks that are out of our municipality, like resolution and little E, it's advocacy for that, for the governing bodies that govern those things to be held accountable and get them what they need to get done. Because I won't take my car down there right now. We took the truck down there and I was like, but I won't go down in my car right now. I was just so doing that advocacy work. And also I think that advocacy work extends to out of our to the road in as well, right? As an advocacy piece, because I'd love to see Arlish Caves opened up as a park, and that's in Mount Waddington, which is, so there's other things. Houston Caves road maintained a little bit better because that's a hugely popular spot. They need expansion in their parking lot as well, but those are all, concentrating on what we have in here. I think having that on every committee, a line item, or at least a conversation on every committee meeting we have will progress that further faster. Anything else on that one?
That's that you're kind of on the subject of roads. I have like a bit of a concern from resident standpoint, stuff like that, is the road behind Keno. I think that's a huge issue. I think it's something that should be addressed. I think the dust that population gets there is ridiculous. Crazy. Every day there's people speeding by and dust in there. I think that's also something that could be, highlighted.
I think we'll have to dig out some old, we got some old communications to forestry, without having the industry. Now they're starting to log again. So there's always like that, okay, you're making money again. Can you spend some of that money on us? Like helping what we need for our people that are adjacent to your road, right? So yeah. We'll dig out some, maybe some old letters, because I know there's correspondence that we have asked before for them to put a dust minimizer on it, or, I mean, we're not gonna do what we used to do back in the old days, just cover it in oil. Because that was the solution, right? But not anymore.
I did talk to, so when they did, coming from Port McNeil, they did a diversion for, this was a year ago or maybe 2 years ago. And, they did put something down on the road to keep the dust down. And I talked to Modi about what it was that they used. I don't remember now. But, you know, under,
Now might be a really good time. I know we're kind of off topic here, but now would be a good time to put it through, because after you get to the out of town bridge, that's it's Fair Harbor Forest Service. Right, so they're doing projects on Fair Harbor Forest Service right now. Might be a way to squeak something in under this year's budget to get them to do it. I don't know. Just massaging the system the way you can, because I know that there's money out there for projects on that Fair Harbor Road.
Kind of a basic question, but where is it not? Is it, so it's ours up to the stop sign? And as soon as you turn right,
it's still within our municipal jurisdiction, but it's not our road.
until where?
So
None of it is.
I don't know, like,
Up to the highway,
None of it is.
What
Yeah,
about-
none of that main line. It's all called for Forest Service Road. The Zeballos FSR and then the Fair Harbor FSR.
And then
It doesn't-
Ministry of Transportation is from the Old Town Bridge
Right.
Yeah.
Until the top of the hill.
So the stop sign.
until the bottom of.
So, right, okay, yeah.
So the only road that we really own is the one that goes across the bridge to the stop sign to the FSR. Pandora and Ferris and Reno. That's it.
So if we want to do something to that road, we need them to support it.
So they have to do it. They won't let us do any work on it. That's their responsibility.
I had a discussion, I know I had a discussion with Ministry of Forest. Back when I started, and unfortunately, one of the issues is a private resident to clear all of the bush out of there, which was a natural barrier to a lot of that dust coming into the residents.
Can I speak on that? They say that, but then this year they brushed the whole thing themselves with a brusher, so that statement doesn't really hold true this year.
Well, it does, because there was all that dense stuff coming from the roadside too. That's all been cleared out.
Yeah, by that, no.
No.
Yeah.
That little road that comes in behind.
Well, like, no, I know that got built by a resident or whatever, but then they did say that like the brush was a defense mechanism, but then they went in there with the brusher this year and cleared
Okay.
the whole road edge themselves anyway, so the statement doesn't count.
It's definitely an issue. Further into that.
If they did some of that coal pack.
Even, yeah, like just speaking of my experience, we doing road building in Alberta and stuff, there's things you can use. Calcium is like a big one. You roll your calcium into the road in the last couple of years, and they pack it in very easy. I don't think it's that expensive. It can be done by local contractors in this town with a calcium truck that brought in
We're talking like 200 meters, right, or something? Like,
to the bridge. Is kind of what I was thinking, but yeah.
It's an ask for them to address. I know that they did that between 7 and 5 on our main road and had a ton of issues with it. So it might be that it's an unproven, they tried to do that before in a section and it didn't, because of our climate or whatever. So, but there, I know that there is amendments that they can bring in. There's something that can be done. I do know that there's,
I put it on as a potential priority.
Well, I think roads here in general are, if I can just continue for 1 second, I think that there's a lot of, we're in a title zone and we're dealing with 501 issues everywhere. So I know what's happening underneath our road system, back road. There's been cold packing and things going on, little places around here, but there is a lot of water infiltration under our roadways with what we're what 501 is built on is the same thing as what our asphalt is built on all of our roads. So there is that tidal water infiltration, and I know we're getting sinkholes and things like that. It hasn't really been a huge issue, but there are places around town that is very an uneven surface, and I know that's from organics underneath being packed down and breaking down. So roads will become, I think, more of an issue as time passes. And maybe once we get a 501 kind of, a grasp on that will help us in our planning for our roads. Sorry, I keep going with that, but
I think it ties in well with the next subject, water and sewer infrastructure, because often when you're replacing.
can it be where the road's supposed to be? And
How's everybody feeling about that? I know that with the wastewater treatment plants coming in, that's a priority, whether we want to be or not. And I've heard at the table when we were talking about grant funding, that a new push on east side sewer is something that council is focusing on. So
I think once we have the capacity from that project, then that triggers this project. I also am curious about what direction EHASAT is going with their water infrastructure, because I know that there's only so much you can do as a small water provider. And I don't know if they are going to put in their own system or if they're going to rely on our system. Or there's musings going around and things like that, and so and the monitoring, right? I don't know that there's capacity, it's just research right now whether there's capacity for 2 water systems, but I do know with that expansions with the sewer, the water's the same thing. We're going to have a bigger system unless they put in their own, which could be a bonus for us if they did put in their own, because then there's the possibilities of treatment being pushed out, right?
So I do want to dispel, I've heard this from you a couple of times.
No, and I know has nothing to do with connections. You've made that very clear.
Yes.
Absolutely,
Yeah, nothing to do with size.
But it's our small water system, I think, makes it easier for us to not go through that chlorination and treatment process. And let us slide a bit.
Yeah. Because Port McNeil's still unchlorinated.
Yeah.
Untreated. Yeah. Any more discussion on?
I think it could probably get moved up in a kind of priority, like, because everything's coming to a fruition in the next couple of years. I think, like I said, that triggers, does anybody have any disagreements with that? It would trigger a project on this side and get us to start having a look at our water as well.
I'm going to do a vote at the end anyways.
I would just say on that topic, we'd be doing ourselves a very big disservice if we weren't prepared to expand and provide supers to the rest of our community on the tail end of, if this ever happens, when it ever happens. So, I mean, a lot of the infrastructure, part of the infrastructure is already in place. There's a pipe going across the bridge to facilitate it. And so it'd be a huge disservice if we weren't at least somewhat prepared to attack that on the tail end of this project being completed.
I think before we move on, it takes us back to the communication thing with our partners. I know we've been working, you yourself, I think, and council have been working on increased communication with our partners and neighbors. It's so important to put it in place. From what I see, without that communication, things are going ahead over there on the Addison anyway. So yes, that could leave Zeballos in an awkward position if there isn't a backup plan in place to service this side. I think we should take a really close look at that backup plan in case of, and the major thing here is the communication. I mean, I know everybody's trying to get to work, but without, it's leaving the council here in the dark as to how we proceed to take care of Zeballos and its citizens. So waiting to see what other people are gonna do could jeopardize the services that are provided on this side. It's just super important to either have the plan, to back a plan, or both, and increase that communication somehow. And I know it's been tried. But, it's super important. So yeah. Moving this item up, I think would be a great idea. Thank you.
Can I make sure you understand what I was speaking about?
Please.
You know, on the west side, there's no septic. Realize that?
No.
Okay, so right now, up Keno, right? Keno, up Keno, there's no septic. It all goes into one and out. You realize that?
No.
Okay. Now, we put in place things to make the east side that way too. So the east side of the bridge, there's a pipe going under the bridge so that essentially we could get rid of all the septic in town. So that's what we're talking about. Just because I have a feeling you didn't realize that was part of the picture.
No.
So,
Only one of the bridges serviced, this side isn't.
so especially if this project comes into play, we gotta make sure that we continue with that project and push it through. But it's already something that's been discussed that we wanna make a move on. I don't know, it's been lost in translation for a little while. Probably because it's a big project. There's another factor there that I just wanted to make sure you understood, sir.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep,
Yeah, so the school and all the homes over there have that capability, but we don't even have the capability to offer it over here yet. So that's the expansion over on this side, the east side.
Oh,
Official community plan. It is complete. Now, having said what I said at the very beginning of this meeting, is there any reason for us to review it prior to the 5-year?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, we may want to do a check-in at a 2.5 year and have some kind of public meeting or something like that. And, you know, are we still on track or something like that, just to have some kind of, I think the people in town really appreciated the opportunity to engage and the way it was done with the multi-fact. So a state of affairs or maybe a barbecue or something and just like, this is how are we still, or maybe not, but I do know that was the one thing that I was, we had talked about lack of community engagement, and that was the one thing in the last little while that I felt really good about, like people actually wanted to comment on and stuff. So, to bring that community engagement, that community pride back, there may be an opportunity to do that, but I think pretty much we put that to bed until the review comes up. That's just my thinking. How's everybody?
I don't think there's anything at this point.
501 remediation. Given that this is a project that we're already moving forward on, do we keep it in the top 5? Or, do we, because we have made leaps and bounds on, now we understand what we're dealing with. Council's put aside funding in 2025 to get an execution plan put together. So moving forward, it's going to be just executing, finding funding to do it.
That is only the main parking lot. Is lot 501 not go into the rest of that area? Because we're right now only focused on the one, so still have to focus on the other.
Yes, yeah, and I think it'll be a multi-year project, just simply because of how much it's going to cost. And then especially when we get to where there's the other private leaseholders, just coordination of the project. And that very well could be just because of that point, a reason to keep it.
I think it really ties in well with when we're asking for grants, right? To continue on with this project, it's still a very, up, like, it's already 5. I mean, keeping it there at that, like, this is an active kind of working on this thing, but depends where it comes out on either our top 5 or our long list, right?
Okay, moving on to the sub priorities, and then 10:30, almost, I think it's 2 hours. So let's go through these, and then what I will do is based on what I've heard today, I'll make a list, put it up on the board, and then have everybody. I'll make that list, then check in with everybody if I've missed anything, add any more items. And then at the very end of this, do like we did last time, each take 5 sticky notes, and vote on your top 5 priorities. Sound good?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
So sub priorities, policy development. Now, I know that was one that we laughed about, and because I was the one that brought it up. And it got 1 vote. I actually think that this can come off the list.
Although there still is a lot of work to be done, like with the bylaw, with the actual getting our things in order to be able to act on any of the bylaw violations. I think that can't be lost.
Well, and I think more so, it's just a part of doing business as a municipality. When I put this on, it was a priority because we didn't have any human resources policies, which I still need to work on. We were lacking in so many areas that made us vulnerable. I think that we really supplemented some of those areas, back some of them up. So now that we have, a foundation to work off of. But I don't think it needs to be focused anymore. I think they'll come as and when needed. That's my perspective.
I would not disagree.
There's a lot of tons beside those.
The team.
Things have happened.
Reclaim village property. So we've done the traffic and parking bylaw. On that one of the things that we haven't done, and just that it'd be nice to get some council direction on that. There was back in the 90s, there was a verbal agreement between a mayor and a resident that access would be maintained to their lot. Do we still maintain that access? Because that is 2 to 3 more parking spots.
Oh, you're in Overflow?
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in keeping things how they have. We've put a lot of things in place that have been handshake deals that now are just, we're keeping it the status quo the same as it's been, because it's been that way for so long. I'm talking like the point doing the going on private property to do snow removal and things like this. So we're trying to make sure that the things that have already been done are kind of still adhered to, but in a proper way. So whether that's easement, whether that's road allowed, whatever that looks like, I think doing it so it's not a handshake anymore. So it's an actual, some kind of agreement, right? I think would probably be the best way to go, especially I know for the CAO's liability comfort's sake. Yeah. That's just anyone else? I think we've tried to do that with zoning, kind of stay true to what's already their zones, kind of stay true to what. Are there any?
I totally agree that, they should have access to their property. If it was some type of easy access to be able to get to the back of their property from the road, it might be different, but they don't have any access to get to the back of their property.
And I don't even know, are we talking about the hills up there that we
No.
provided access to? Okay, sorry.
Overflow parking.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I think we've done a lot of things to like that. I thought you were talking about up there because we're trying to provide people access, right? So, oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
but I still,
No, that's a perfect example as well.
The only thing I'd say about that is like, you're gonna run into people asking for things and then drawing comparisons, what we've allowed to happen. That's, could become a big problem. And as uncomfortable as some decisions are, sometimes you have to move forward. As a municipality, right? So I'm not gonna say yea or nay on what we're gonna do, but that's fact. So one day that's gonna bite us in the ass. If we allow people certain access and certain things that we decide not to allow to others, and it could look different, but it's gonna be compared, so.
Any more on reclaimed village property?
think through the parks that will come. Think through that parks planning, and I think that it's embedded in there.
Tours and wayfinding signage.
And I think some of these are already like in that parks, but you know what I mean? They all feed into that. I think that having, wayfind, there's not a whole lot of ways to go. So you're not wayfinding really, but having something like a map or, the tour, the tsunami, information, those kinds of things in those key places. I do think that there's still a lot of work to be done on that new town of language piece. And I think that would come in, a parks project that we might pursue or we might not. I think it's a piece that always has to kind of sit there in the back of our minds. And like our public works forum was saying, the signage to go up about the new parking fees, charges, those kinds of things are all in the process. Sorry, Councilor.
Oh, this one's an easy one. So once we have our glass line in, fiber line, we're gonna have an app, a Zeballos app, and you can download it or you can take a snapshot of it, and we can have maps on there, a portal for a parking thing, whatever,
For parking pay.
for everything we need in this aspect, right? And I think 95% of people will use it, but we're just lacking connection to be able to offer it. And then we don't have I don't know, signage is kind of cluttering too. I found too much of it, so.
And it's funny, you segue into sort of what I think is, just from my experience, a good idea, is branding. So, it's one thing to have signs to tell you where to go, but are they recognizable? Is it recognizable as the municipal sign that's, this is, a municipal park, this is the municipal waterfront, and again, I think this is probably a separate council meeting, but is our current branding the branding that we move forward with? Do we want to enhance that? Do we want to change it altogether? More inclusive branding,
Consistency.
yeah, consistency. So before I provide Hudson with direction to go and buy wayfinding signs for the campground and the RV park is what are we putting on them that represents Zeballos? We touched on this next one a little bit, is a road strategy. I have never really been clear. Did I miss one?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Skip the museum.
Oh, okay. Back to the inclusive museum.
Mr.
No,
Yeah.
that one we did.
With the language contemplation.
I touched on it briefly. Well, that's, I think, what he was talking about with the branding as well. We'll have to decide kind of what we're soaring to.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah.
To extending that.
Yeah.
I see it, thank you.
And there's some things that might be coming up with that through the SRD that we can compound on with that tourism piece, so I'll have a conversation with you about as that, if it moves forward. There's some Campbell River kind of partnership kind of things going that were simmering in the background, so, yeah.
And if I move on too quickly for anybody, just, pull me back. If I hear a gap of silence, that's sort of my cue to move to the next one.
Yeah, pretty sure.
Inclusive museum. We haven't done a lot on that. I think that ties into communications. But, there is opportunity or there is availability for us to give more of a focus in providing that opportunity. I'm not sure what we have in the budget. I know we have that back room at the museum. Could that be used as sort of an exclusive, inclusive area, or do we, do something even greater, bigger, and revamp the whole layout of the museum? It's a question for me.
Without a curator there, without someone who's concentrating on that, I really think that that's kind of, that relies on us to be a curator as well, which, I mean, there's so many things that are involved in that, like the temperature things are like, there's so much. So, yeah. I wish there was someone to just kind of advise on that, right? That there was a kind of an advisory kind of person that could advise on that, what you have to do, what you don't have to do, how you keep things in the best shape. I think so far it's been status quo, but I know there have been concerns from some people about the environment in there itself, about everything's, we keep the heat on and things like that, but everything just goes back to the earth here. It's a wet place, and keeping the integrity of those items in the wet position and extension of, items. There's been a lot of stuff added that I've seen when I've come in as a volunteer to do volunteer work, that I'm unsure of where it's gone and what the history even is. So, it definitely needs a look at. Having the time to concentrate on that is a big priority. I don't know that that's as something that's used just for a couple of months out of the year.
And this is the reason for this meeting today is, if that is a strategic priority for council, then we take some of the energy that we've been putting in other places as staff and start to focus it where council directs us. I just got a thought, and you being on ICE-T might know more so than me, but is there funding where we could get an external curator to come in and give us advice? Would that be something that ICE-T could?
Probably, possibly. I don't know what's out there right now. Because we're in this kind of transition space looking for other funding, right? Definitely a conversation to have with them. Yeah, and I do know that there is help. We had a presentation from someone at the museum at Campbell River at a Strathcona Regional District meeting, and they said that they have staff that are, you know, that can help with those things. So that's a resource that we could possibly use. Yeah, I think that it needs to stay on there for sure. It needs to stay on our radar. We need to not forget that we have it. Right? Because there's a lot of, I, as a volunteer, went in there, opened the door the other day, went to show 2 people. I had 8 people through there before, like, once the door is open, people just, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah.
I'm just confused, what is inclusive museum?
Um, ensuring that, the entire area's interests are represented. So not just the, you know, the village of Zeballos, but, the First Nations that were for us.
So I think that there's definitely, first of all, that's like an amazing thing to have. I mean, the rich culture and history that is involved in that. But my opinion of that is like, it'll come in time. And I think right now, like, especially to speak about Hatteras, like, that's not what they're concentrating on at all. Right? And I think eventually though, when they catch up to where their priorities are, that's something that could, you know, even involved in the expansion of the museum, and it could, you know, and more of a reflection on that, of that, and Zeballos would be amazing to have. It's and it is super interesting to visitors and to tourists and this kind of thing. So, but I think there is some time.
Again, with the communication and the duplication of services, would it not be the greatest assumption that we should make is that they're probably gonna wanna promote their heritage as well as expanding the Hadasat territory? Will they be putting their own museum in to reflect their background? Which I would think would be the best solution, to be honest with you. Because then they've got the great curators there, they know exactly what they're doing in their history and everything. To put that upon the village's fellows. I think it should be dropped down on the list, to be honest with you. For priority.
Moving on. Road strategy. So we've got our official community plan. We've just done a traffic and parking bylaw. We tied into a parks plan if we ever get one. Was there any other sort of, I don't remember who suggested this or where this came from in 2023. So maybe somebody could refresh my memory what a road strategy is, on what the road strategy was.
I think from my memory, it was partially the advocacy for the road, right? That road, or FSR. But also, like I was saying, I'm seeing new kind of low spots and the infiltration and also having the parking on the main roads just in front of people's houses. I think everything is connected, right? And so when we're doing major waterworks or sewer works, that's definitely something to keep on our radar, right? As those low pieces where we're getting the divots in the pavement and things like that. And it's all from infiltration underneath and organics just melting away under our feet. Councilor Lewis.
For ones that are parking on roadway on Maquinna, but it's not our property, it's road service, whichever. How does one get people to move their vehicles?
Or CMP. We've maybe under this new sergeant, it'll be a little better focus with the former sergeant. I know I complained. Yeah, well, and there were multiple complaints and, obviously not effective. I actually had to pull a section out of the Highway Act and remind our CMP that they were responsible for that.
Yeah, because some of it now near the post office there, you're really having to, person coming towards you and you really have to go out and around and it's becoming much tighter all the time.
And hopefully people watch this video. Complaints. As I said earlier, we're complaint driven enforcement. So if nobody complains, nothing gets enforced. And even if it's not our jurisdiction, as long as we receive the complaint, staff can pass it on to the people that are responsible for. Definitely advocacy for if people are not happy with things in the community to come talk to us. Or that was my little soapbox moment.
It would be, good for, RCMP if they sort of went along and checked license plates and stuff too.
Because they don't put the little tag on the back anymore.
So,
That active transportation plan, I don't know where that came from though. I don't know where that was. That's, and maybe that had something to feed in with parks and things like that. And because the trails, those are all active transportation is any biking or walking you're doing, right? But I don't think that that's a major, I don't know where that one came from. So if I don't know if anybody wants to speak to that one.
I think I put that in because the roadways in Zeballos is a active transportation.
Okay.
So, how people get around. So, do we look at sidewalks which can be funded through active transportation?
Right.
That would be part of a road strategy.
Right.
How to remove people, the cyclists and walkers and strollers from the road as you build sidewalks.
I don't think it's high on the priority list here for anybody, but
Be all fancy like that.
right.
it would be.
Maybe that gets, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, cause then you're getting into more infrastructure. Yeah, sidewalk, then you have to have water displacement and it goes on and on.
Hudson was saying that he was a little bored lately.
Still, right, still, boy. I think maybe that might rear its head again with like a kind of a road, like a municipal road strategy, but I would, that will come out of other things. That will come out of sewer and water, that will come out of.
Were you thinking more from like an asset management standpoint then, like when it comes to budgeting,
Right.
when you're thinking about the future?
Right? Yeah, possibly. And I think also that conversation will come out of the parks because it's where we're moving around through the community, right? So I don't think it necessarily having it as its own standalone. But
See when the folks come.
we'll see when the votes come.
I'll tell you a quick opinion from the other side you came up with about our bylaws, how they're enforced. I think the RSMP are very similar to how they see Zeballos. I think it's mostly complaint driven. And if we don't stand up and advocate to them what we want, then nothing's really gonna happen unless somebody calls in and says, I have a problem. So it was just a bit of discussion about that within this, and I thought I'd make that clear. I think that's, if we want something from them, have to stand up and be part of the complaints.
Revenue opportunities. Sort of curious from a staff perspective is what would be some of the actionable items that you would be looking at staff to do?
I think we're already working towards kind of trying to, with our fees and charges, I think that getting that to a place where it's I think that some of that work has already been done, is what I'm saying. I think we'll reap the benefits of that, even though it's not much of a change, but I think we'll see that difference this year in a very small proportion because of the small the small amount of users or population that it affects, right? But I do think we'll see the runoffs of that. Anybody else?
What's that ECW?
Oh, economic development.
And there are all sorts of plans that we can try to put in place as we can. I know that TAS has got a grant to have an economic development officer in their as part of their municipality to look at, moving forward on that. So that's those are opportunities. Someone who would come in and explore. We had that conversation earlier. Oh geez, that's a lot of years now. The economic development strategy. So we do have an economic development strategy here in the village of Zeballos in partnership with Nishatlet and Cayuga-Checklesett. So there is one on the shelf. And those were things like mountain biking parks outside of the community and those kinds of things. So they were all kind of outside. They were using the natural resources of the place more than internal. But it's just a quick thing on that. I don't think we're going to have any C2C meetings. I really don't. Connected Coast, we'll see the residuals of that, but I don't think there's a whole lot coming online with that.
For economic development, having had an economic development support in Fort McNeil, one thing that I learned from that is council has to have some sort of strategic direction for them to work. Unfortunately, the one that we had there was no cohesive direction for her to work on. So she was sort of throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping it would stick, and yeah, it seemed a little cart before the horse. So it is that particular council didn't have a vision yet. And I think that would be something that we would need to do prior to looking at that as an opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah, as I said, the active around here, I think is going to be residuals off of other people's building and other people's growth. I just don't know that there is a keystone economic opportunity that we as a municipality can do. I think there's opportunity for others to come in and do value added woodworking to do. I think there's all sorts of opportunities for people for cottage, but I don't know that there's a whole lot for us to do on that front, not being with being a municipality.
If I may,
Go ahead.
this is an idea I've had for some time, and it would definitely take some work on communications and partnership, but definitely ties into our housing and economic development is community built tiny homes. So you get the plans, provide training to some of the local people that want to learn a new skill or a new trade, and start building the tiny homes in Zeballos, primarily for use here, if successful, then for sale elsewhere, using locally sourced lumber. So through to or somebody else that would want to partner in a project like that. That's something that I thought often would be a huge economic driver for our community, and to fill some needs, not just for Zeballos. So like I was thinking the mobile home park could be filled, but Habitat's also looking to grow.
Yeah. Like I said, there's opportunities for things to happen here, absolutely, right? But I don't know that the municipality spearheading those economic I don't know what the opinion or the view is on that. I think that people have lots of ideas, it's putting them into fruition, right? You know, along with that wood, like value added kind of stuff, that there's like room for spaces for art, there's room for, you know what I mean? But where does the municipality fit into that? Are we gonna start a corporation of our own side, on an offside of a corporation, right? Like we did with NOCDC, right? That was a logging corporation. This would be a different, but a corporation in partnership as a revenue generator, right? So, yeah. I don't think we're there yet. These are definitely considerations, absolutely. Yeah, but what role is there for the municipality in that, and how involved do we want to be?
Okay, moving on now. Community pride, how are we feeling?
I don't think that the village-led events is done. There's still room for that. I think the trails will, but I do think the work that the public works has done, just keeping the beautification of the village up, has been massive in the opinion, even from locals, from tourists, from everybody. Opinions. You take care of your own, people are going to take care of theirs. We've said that for a really long time on this council, as long as I've been on council. The more we can get our own business in order, the more we project that to the rest of the community, the more that they want to climb on board with that. So besides the people who aren't here to see it. I think it's still a priority of us. I think that we're always trying to find ways to get engagement of people and have them be a part of, take ownership, have buy-in, you know, on those kind of things. That'll kind of send it in. We'll see what the
Yeah.
votes come out.
Nothing else.
I totally agree with what you did. I guess you saw the post on Facebook. But Hudson and his crew have done here. Yeah, absolutely. If we got a beautiful place, and people are just gonna say the same thing that they're saying to me now, and the people that are bumping into that, it's so beautiful, so beautiful. And all that comes from being well kept and well maintained, and like starting with the cemetery, and you come by there, it's beautiful. And then when you come into town, I mean, you've got the beautiful flowers at your house, for example. Maybe across the street will be a cenotaph, but it'll just keep drawing people down. Oh, look, it's so beautiful, more beautiful. And then you get to the waterfront and it's beautiful and active. So the whole concept of keeping everything nice and clean and tidy and everything, it's super significant. And again, I think.
Thank you.
And there's also an opportunity, again, this is governance, but for property maintenance, you know, council directing staff for active enforcement on site premises instead of complaint driven. Well, within council's purview. And it is allowed for in our policy.
You elaborate on it? That's pretty significant.
So instead of us waiting for somebody to complain about an unsightly premises, so, you know, some of these vacant, overgrown lots is that we take a proactive stance and start trying to work with the property owners in maintaining those properties and, you know, removing derelict buildings, taking out the underbrush fire hazards, or whatever else is in our unsightly premises, which I haven't analyzed, but. You know, encouraging them by working with them to further improve the beautification of the community.
And that hasn't been done in the past.
Not active. It's complaint driven.
So is there a move presently to become active, or we just,
That's a direction of council for
Yeah.
sure.
okay,
And the reluctance with that is, so why do you go to these people's homes who don't even live in community, who obviously are not working on their properties, and give them this kind of free, bonus kind of work or whatever, and then the people that are living here that are maintaining their homes like aren't, right? So, yeah, there's been there's been conversations about that in the past, at least, about capacity of public works, what they're already doing in the summertime when the bush is getting big, when the growth is getting big, and then the fire smart kind of grants to help push people along. So there's been an not invasive or not what would you call that? Not in partnership with the homeowners, but more of a, this is what we have to offer, please take advantage of it. Did you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, see if anyone else said, were you, when you mentioned working with and making sure and taking down buildings, were you meaning that you would be saying you need to do this or actively doing it for them?
Oh, no, you need to do this.
Okay.
And if you don't do this, this part of our bylaw allows us to do this at your expense. And it's not always necessarily public works. You can hire a contractor to come in and do the work on behalf of the village, and then forward that cost to the property owner. Thank you for the clarification.
Mhm.
If they're not willing to comply.
And usually once you're working with somebody, they usually, send person in that, oh, we've gotten our letter, let's go in and do a once over, right? But, it's, yeah. So it is encouraging, even just the letter writing, but I think it's been we've taken an unintrusive kind of role in that.
I think there's lots of reasons to approach the people above their lots with health, fire, rodent infection, other than roadside beauty. So there's a lot of ammunition to go after some of the lot owners that don't live here to clean up their lots.
And those are still a complaint driven process. However, the way the complaints would be handled differently. Is that what you're saying?
No, it would be a direction from council that of our bylaws, we do have this one, under our bylaw complaint policy, we want staff to start actively enforcing. Which means that, we would identify that needed to, we as staff would identify the lots that don't meet the standards of the unsightly premises bylaw. And that's not a decision we need to make this morning. Just part of the community pride conversation. The last one, and we've touched on it a few times, housing. One of the things that I don't have listed here is we have provincial legislation, which we've dealt with. Interim housing needs report, which we've dealt with. But for the part and parcel with the mobile home park is, do we become our own developers? Or do we start taking more of an active interest in the vacant home owners? A direction to staff is, follow the path as far as you can of what provincial legislation is out there that allows us to control this in a better manner. I've heard that discussion. We've gone to UBCM with that discussion, but it's not been a strategic priority or focus, so it's not really a tapped resource yet.
This is just my brothers. Putting it as a strategic priority doesn't. I don't know how far we would get. We've gone to UBCM. There are only so many actions that we can do with recourse or our own part. That's why things like stuffing your the tax notices, like saying, hey, these are, we have this issue. Is there, something we can do to help you to, or something like that. But other than that, really, there's no way to communicate with them, except for that kind of, and I think it's a priority for us because it definitely takes away from the beauty. What it does is it takes community out of community. If there's no one here in the homes, right? We used to have a vibrant, thriving community when 300 people lived here. But because 40% of the homes are empty, now we're down to 150. So like it's all that kind of numbers. I think that it's definitely something that we want to look at, and we have been looking at through the RV park, or not the RV park, the mobile home park. And I think there's room to do that, but, yeah, we've tried to come at that from every angle, and I just don't know you can't control who buys homes and how often they want to be here in their home, right? We've tried the tax route, we've tried the homeowner grant route, we've tried to, poke and prod at the province about giving us some leverage, something to work with that we can make our citizens know of this issue. Like, it's so funny, even the people I talk to walking up and down the street, I'm like, yeah, 40% of the homes are empty here. Like 40%, no, that's not, yeah, look, every second house down the street, like, so I think it's just kind of flying under the radar. People are not.
And I think that's my question. If it's a council strategic priority, that's no longer just a, 15-minute speed dating conversation with the minister who's sort of half-heartedly taking notes. It's, staff rolling up our sleeves, and finding tangible solutions. But that takes time and resources and effort. And I don't know if these are tangible, ways that we can go, bylaws that we could implement, but different sort of spot zoning, to identifying those vacant properties and making it so that if it's vacant, that you have to request a reason or something like that. Is there something tangible that we can use? So we can't use the vacancy tax, unless council really push an advocacy to the province to start implementing that. But are there other avenues that we can put stress on the vacant homeowners so that it's not so easy for them to be homeowners? And that's what I mean. That's if it's a strategic priority, then staff rolls up their sleeves and starts digging into what is a solution, a legal, tangible solution.
Well, we'll see where the votes come out on it. It is on the long list, right? So it is still part of that strategic priority process.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just how far we want to go on it.
Just have a question regarding the housing. I'm having thoughts about this tiny home thing again, which I think I was supporting all along. Are we just not encouraging more empty homes? Like to be bought as cottages, temporary fishing lodges, then going away again and leaving us with more empty homes? Whether they be tiny apartments or trailers? Or are we just selling more cottages?
I think it depends on the control of those. So the mobile home park, we could have our own control on that, of what the use is. But as Mayor Colborne pointed out before, we can't say who can and can't buy property and buy homes. Our zoning already allows for tiny homes. That we don't have a size listed out in our zoning of how big or small a house can be. So, if somebody wanted to develop a tiny home, they're more than welcome to on this, given this current point.
Yeah, so that doesn't decrease the empty housing issue at all, does it?
No, No, it would if we are our own developers, though.
Right.
We took our own land, and placed tiny homes and serviced them, then we would be in control of who can and can't live in those.
Or some sort of a covenant or something, that
Yeah,
if you buy this house, it helps or something.
That we could do on our own property, but we can't do that on other people's property.
Yeah, so the tiny home thing making me think twice about it now.
Well, I think that what we're saying though is doing that within the mobile home park. Then we control, these are, rental or live in or, permanent residences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so could we take a 5 or 10 and, I'm going to create a list from everything I've heard today. Include all of this. I'm gonna put it up on the screen there. I'm gonna get Alana to give everybody,
Perfect.
one of each color, including staff.
We'll take a 5 or 10 minute?
10 minutes to let us, keep going. What we'll do is, we'll go around and see if there's anything that anybody wants added to the list that we haven't discussed yet. I know I've got one that, I would like to add. There might be something that somebody's been on somebody's mind, that needs to be a priority that none of the rest of us have thought about. And before anybody starts writing on their sticky notes, I think we did it wrong last time. So it's a point system. Number 5 is your most important. So at the end of the day, whoever gets the most points is going to be number 1. And we did it backwards the last time. And so that's
Very confusing.
yeah, it got very confusing. So you're awarding the most points, 5 points to the most important thing to you.
Okay.
I saw Counselor Lewis starting to write. I was like, oh, I better nip that one in the bud.
I still can't see the list.
Oh, we're not gonna vote yet. We're gonna add to it. But I'm waiting for Atlanta.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I zoomed out.
Too much.
That's better.
I need to go down just a little bit. More.
Almost.
Yeah, I can still read that.
Okay, so going around the room, we'll start with Councillor Denise. Is there anything you wanted to add?
Well, I wanted to ask a question.
Oh, go ahead. Yep.
So water and sewer east. So what's the difference? If anybody has any input on this. If we were to implement that prior to the potential waste treatment plant or not?
Sorry, I need some clarity on that
Yeah.
question.
So the water and sewer east, so the taking of sewage across the bridge to its destination that exists now, right? Or after the treatment plant is in place, what's gonna be the difference?
Oh, we don't have capacity right now, even for what we're currently putting in it.
Okay,
Like, I think,
that totally answers my question.
yeah, I think report said we were already out of compliance.
Yeah.
So,
So we can't do anything without an expansion of some sort.
correct.
So the wastewater treatment plant is what's currently underway.
Correct.
Okay,
I didn't put it on the list because it's currently underway and it's not our.
it's right there,
Is it?
wastewater
Is it?
treatment
Oh, I
plant.
can see it.
Yeah, it is. So that's why it kind of, that one being on its own and then the water and sewer, east side sewer, like it was before it was water and sewer infrastructure. Right? And I think that was much.
I recommend maybe we split it up, we have one for water and then we have one for sewer.
Oh, come on.
different. Two different things.
That's putting sewer in on this side, which we can't do until the water treatment plant on that side is done.
Not the water treatment.
Or the
I
sewer,
understand.
the sewer,
No, and that's why I don't want to skew the result.
Okay, so right now,
it is water. 'Cause it's
on the west
wastewater.
side,
Oh, waste.
every house has a pipe that goes out. And it all goes into one spot. They don't have what you have. You understand?
Mhm.
But, so what would happen is they want to do that on the other side of the bridge too. So essentially, it would take away your septic. Take away the septic on that side. It would all be piped over the bridge and out of the way.
Okay.
As part of the municipal system.
So there's two different things happening.
Yeah, we're running two systems. Well,
No, we're not running any systems over here. They have nothing to do with the wastewater over here.
Over here is all
Nothing.
septic.
Oh.
Over there is none.
Yeah.
It is essentially septic, but it all goes in one field way up. So our options are, at this point, wait for this potential treatment plant and feed into it from the side also. Or figure out our own way of doing it, which would be maybe expanding our septic field or. But my question was like, how much does that project hinge on the treatment plant being built? And can we have the capacity to do that project and facilitate it? We can't.
So to reallocate its standing, its rating, the significance is difficult to do right now, isn't it? But knowing the results of,
Correct.
so we're not gonna rate that as a priority then?
well, I can enhance.
Please do,
a
thank
little
you.
bit. So for me, knowing that we do need to connect the east side eventually, and speaking with the staff and speaking with our engineers and just through my own experience, the step system, which was recommended to us a few years ago, and Wedler Engineering, I don't think is the most appropriate direction for the east side, given the intensity of maintenance required by the public works crew. And I won't go into the details of the plan, but from what I understand, it's a low pressure system, which means that every property here would have their own pumping system. And in reading Wedler's report, he did recommend that Public Works would be responsible for the maintenance of all of those individual pumping stations. Having lived that myself in concept, it is a great idea. It's much cheaper and much easier to implement. However, the long-term maintenance is a nightmare because you can't control what people are flushing down their toilet. And therefore, or doing in their yards, and therefore the maintenance becomes given. Because now you're not just maintaining a lift station, like a major lift station, now you're maintaining whatever it is, 60, 70 community
In the middle of the night.
in the middle of the
On
night
its own.
on a Sunday, yes.
On the Sunday, that's Christmas,
Yeah.
Christmas Day. And the hundreds of, and there's no,
But that's another issue. With lift stations, at least we can.
that's it, that's all, the only question I have, so.
Yeah, sorry, and I'm going off on a tangent.
Yeah.
Just ignore me.
No, and I think that we've got to be really clear here, because so in this plan, what the priority is water and sewer infrastructure.
Mhm.
So there's technical support, there's the water treatment facility, there's the east side expansion, they're all included in that.
Okay.
And then divvying that up, I think kind of muddies the water. We know that we need water, we know that we need sewer. I think that is, I think it's a one priority, right, as it was before, because it's up there as number 3, like it got, some of the most votes, right? But then breaking that up, I don't know that.
I didn't, I just,
Yeah,
just included it all.
yeah. Yeah, So adding it, keeping it all as one subject line, I think will make it easier for us to go through. And then prioritizing that as we're working through grants and making sure that the progress on what's happening over there with the expansion is going ahead, all those kind of things will come. We just don't know enough yet to make, you know, to
And Councilor Copeland, that's not mud in the water.
it's waste in the water. Yeah. Okay, additions. Anybody have any additions that have not been captured here? CAO.
I have an addition. A building use master plan. We have a lot of space that I don't think is utilized to the best of its ability. And I think it would be good to start reviewing the building space that we have and seeing if we can maximize the use of it,
Efficiency.
the efficiency of it. So that would be mine.
Like municipal buildings?
Yes. I say building use.
Master plan. I feel like master plan goes,
Yeah.
you know, it's like when it's just another plan.
Efficiency. Not a good.
Yeah.
Title.
It's just a word that I had to spell.
Efficiency plan.
And we're talking about use of space, not the efficiency of the building, correct?
No, that's right. Yeah,
Okay.
use of space. Anything from our staff, because you guys see everything day to day. This is your opportunity to finally say something in this forum.
I feel like lots of stuff that is on my mind is covered in there.
Yeah.
Public works related, water, sewer, 501. Parks.
Is that the whole thing? We're all the way at the top?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll go down just a
making sure
little bit
that
more.
That's.
I didn't want to do that.
No.
Sorry. Sorry.
It was perfect, just the way it was, because it just all fit, but it was big enough we could see.
Just trying to get it all on the same page.
Mhm.
There we go.
Okay, so we're putting the highest, so 5 is our highest priority.
Yeah, so no other additions?
I like the building use, that could be like building use and property. Like I'm thinking about like the yard, right? Like the efficient use of the public works yard too, and like doesn't have to be just a building, it could be somewhere where you want a structure, or like we talked about to house equipment, maybe just lean to, or so I would consider that pretty important.
Can we abbreviate?
Yes. Just as long as I understand what it is.
So 5 is the highest number of points. That's the one.
Yes.
Okay, so
That's-
doing it
that's right.
reversed.
Yeah, so 5 is what you want, and
We're
one,
doing staff as well. Okay, well, that's good to know.
maybe for staff, just put the S on it so that we know it's staff. Because we are not governance.
We're just writing on.
Yeah.
We get more than 1, 5.
I still don't think this is gonna be accurate. I'm just putting it out there. I'm fine with the plan the way it goes forward. I just still don't think it's gonna be accurate because of the length of the list. So there's 5 options. There's 5 options here. There's also that long list is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I don't know how we got 9. Do you know what I mean?
Well, for instance, policies and policy development is on here.
Yeah.
Because I voted for it. I was the only one,
Yeah,
but I voted for it.
Yeah.
So it got at least 1 point.
and
But that's how these ones ended up here.
yeah, so.
I'll make sure that when I redo the strategic,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 20. Like there's 21 options on there. And so,
so what I'll do is when I redo the strategic plan to reflect what we're doing today is we won't lose any of these. I'll
okay,
make sure that,
but they're just put on a sub list or,
yeah, we'll
Okay.
maybe call it the parking lot.
okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
See what it is and what the numbers is, then I'll. We'll leave that in reverse. I'll put the Jeopardy music on now. Everyone to hand their cookies into Alana when you're done.
Thank you. Oh, no.
Thank you.
Ally will.
I would need a spreadsheet. Okay, okay.
Yeah, Hudson's. Okay, so.
development.
I gotta do that.
Municipal dock expansion 3. Building use efficiency 2. 501. Water sewer 5. Trails 4. Tourism 3. Home park and brackets building 2. Landfill 5. Building use 1. Housing 2. Mobile home park 3. Lot 501 4.
Yep.
Water sewer. Go ahead.
Yep.
And do you want, you want to note now that staff or?
No, we, I think that way.
Alright, so water sewer 5. Fire plan 4.
What is it?
501 3. Those 2. Property 5. And trails 4. Tourism 3.
Okay.
Community pride 2. Lot 501 1. Didn't fill out their 1.
On the evil culprit.
You're the evil culprit. I also see you have multiples for numbers.
Oh, we can't, we can only pick one.
Do you want a couple minutes to fill this out? I can give you a new one.
I can take the one back.
Okay, so here's the one that's blank. But for the other ones here, just one of them.
Didn't really answer it.
Yeah, it's just capacity, we can only do.
I understood the whole game, so you only get one chance for one number.
Yeah. You want new tickets, we can do new tickets.
So
You have more. Did you do mine?
You're gonna put in a different color, so staff versus, or not.
Not right now, maybe in the final.
Yeah.
But-
Just remembering who's is who's,
So I didn't do the first one.
Community.
What's what?
remembering what's what though.
Oh,
Right?
we've got it all.
We have.
Oh, okay.
We've gone with that.
Oh, perfect.
And filter 2. 4. Water sewer 5. Roads 2. Water sewer 5.
I think we have a winner.
Housing 1. Trails 4. Community pride 3.
Is that everybody? If my math is wrong, correct me. This will all look way better when I put it into a report. Okay, so to me, it looks like the clear cut winner is water and sewer. Followed by trails and parks. Next after that is it lot 501.
Todd,
I'll go home, yeah.
And was also 9, okay. No, not at all.
Yeah.
Community pride 3, and then community pride. And then beautification, somebody said.
It's included in community pride.
Oh, okay.
Next
Yes,
to
yes.
tourism.
Next is tourism. I think that's 5.
That's one more, that's 6.
Well, yeah, we got a tie, so that'll bump tourism down into the number 1 holding spot.
So then will we do the top 6 priorities?
We'll still do,
Okay.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
there's
I
a
guess
tie that
because
has
there's
to
a
go
tie. I don't think there's any
No.
rules for this, when Heather did this back in 2023, we did a top 5 just based on our capacity, like what can you handle? Any further discussion on this? I think that's a pretty,
Indicative that we're on the same, we're
Yeah.
on the right track.
yeah, that we were in 2023 and,
Yeah.
and we continue to be now.
Yeah, and like I said, thank you for all the hard work that has already been done on these. I think some of them have fallen off and some of them are still on because of the work that you've done. So both of those, the parking piece has kind of fallen off because that's well underway happening, right? 501, still a lot of, kind of parks and plan is well underway. So yeah, it's just getting some things knocked off. I think the mobile home park development, because of maybe, I'm glad that it got onto the top list though. So there's some more discussion around that, possibilities, uses, servicing, all those kinds of things.
Yeah, this is good. This gives us direction.
And you've taken the comments into consideration as well, right?
Yeah,
Lots of
made
notes.
a bunch of notes. I made a bunch of notes.
Perfect.
And then we've also got the recording of this, so.
How are we feeling, folks? Is there anything you?
Don't think so. I appreciate everybody's time. This is extremely important to us as staff. And then me as the administrator to make sure that we are driving forward council's vision. Because that is essentially the work that we do. And if we don't have priorities or visions, it makes it very difficult for us to to do what you want.
Right? Yeah, definitely this direction. Alrighty then. Where did that leave us? Leaves us on our agenda at
Motion to adjourn. Barb's always on that one.
Thank you,
It's rare I
Councilors
miss that one.
Lewis and Denise, all in favor? Any opposed? And that is carried. Thanks, staff. I think that this went really well, and it's